Dr. Corrie, I was very impressed by the Youth Theological Initiative work in educating youth about God's heart for the social injustice in the world. Could you explain to Korean audience about what your center does to promote peacekeeping and social justice, and how do you deliver those messages to young people? 코리 교수님, YTI가 하는 일이 무엇인지, 또 어떤 방법으로 청소년에게 사회 정의에 대해서 가르치시는지 나눠주시면 감사합니다.
So the Youth Theological Initiative is a 3-week program where young people come from around the world to live together on the campus of Emory University. And we are very intentional about creating a community that fosters justice. And so kind of part of how we teach it is implicitly. So, for instance, we have built into the structure of our program democratic forms of governance. So while, of course, we have an entire plan laid out before the young people come to our program, we also have what's called a governance council where they elect members of their own cohort to be part of decision-making processes while we're engaged in the program. Sometimes things come up, something happens in the news or something happens within our community that we realize we might need to change our program in order to respond more faithfully, to take care of each other, or to acknowledge that something bad is happening in the world and we can't just pretend it's not happening while we continue to have our camp. So we actually bring those concerns to members of their community, and they help us think through decisions about how to change the program as we go along. So that's one example of how we sort of teach justice in an implicit way. We have explicit forms of teaching justice where we actually do activities like the Game of Life, which I describe in my presentation, but also show documentaries that help them understand something more about a particular social justice issue. Or we take them to, say, a church that is working on homelessness and hear the people that are working on that talk about the struggles of their work, but also why they feel called as Christians to engage in that kind of work. We might go take a walk through a neighborhood and talk about how does gentrification impact this neighborhood? What do you see? And again, we'll take that walk with someone who's an expert in that, who is a person of faith, who can talk about why it is that their faith inspires them to engage in this kind of work. So part of our curriculum then is introducing them to adults who are people of faith, who are engaged in social justice and consider that part of their Christian vocation, and invite them to reflect on how they take their personal piety and embody that in their actions in the world. We also try to teach that in the little things that we do as a community. We have young people coming from all walks of life in our community, some that come from quite affluent backgrounds and some from less affluent backgrounds. We have some that are coming from other countries where they are a minority and perhaps discriminated against quite significantly, and others within our own country in the United States that are from minority communities that are being discriminated against. We usually socially engineer it in a way that your roommate is going to be someone as opposite from you as possible, so that you have to learn how to live with someone who is different from you. And because we're living together for 3 weeks, they have to figure out how to make it work. You don't just, if you're really doing poorly, of course you could go home, but almost no one ever does go home. We really encourage them to stick it out and promise them that they can actually work through the conflict and learn to live with people who are different from each other. On the other side of it, there's going to be great joy. And there is. And they'll always say at the end, I can't believe I ever thought about going home. I can't believe, I would never want to leave you guys. You are my brothers and sisters now. And they really feel tied to people who are very different from them. And so then what happens is now they have this lifelong bond with different people. they stay in contact with each other through social media, through telephone calls, through WhatsApp, through the internet. And as they watch their people that they love go through life, if they continue to experience injustice, it matters to them. That's a face, right? So, if they have made friends with a young Palestinian Christian who came to our program, and then they see in the news headlines that there's violence happening in Jerusalem, it doesn't just go in one ear and out the other anymore. Now it's, oh my God, I'm worried about Anton, right? Or they made friends with someone who is from Korea, and they hear about the news headlines about, political turmoil, and all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, that's my friend, that's his government, what's going on? So it is because of the diversity that we bring together that they start to learn through living it some social justice.